This is a Media Lab podcast.
Dave, that was a poor choice.
Oh, which choice are you talking about?
You're wearing a red shirt.
Wow.
You never wear a red shirt.
Red's my color. I like how tight it is and how you can...
It's very taut. It's very tight. This just means you're going to get killed first. The machine here is on its, monthly looking for anything out of order to cut down. So I do not promise that you'll survive to the end of this episode.
I make that promise every week.
I think I'll charm it by the fact that the spandex really reveals what's happening at the bottom.
Wow, you've been working out.
Yeah, my penis has gotten larger.
I make that promise every week.
In his own garage, Kyle has built a machine, cobbled together with parts found in his friend's church basement and a dumpster behind the local Dairy Queen. This monstrosity is now alive and evil. Kyle has convinced his friend Dave to help stop the apocalypse by reviewing films the machine picks. The ultimate purpose is still unknown, and Kyle could have probably done this himself, but he's not being dragged to hell alone. This is Kyle and Dave versus the machine.
Welcome to Kyle and Dave versus the Machine. My name is Kyle.
I'm Dave.
And I'm the machine.
A podcast where a sentient machine forces us to watch movies in order to prevent it from initiating the apocalypse. Although we do tend to talk about the ideas of the movie rather than the movie itself. For some reason, this machine really wants us to watch a bunch of movies from 1999. And today, I'm actually very happy because we get to watch the movie Galaxy Quest.
Sweet.
In the far reaches of the galaxy, a civilization is under siege.
We are all that is left.
They've searched the universe for a leader.
Stay tuned for scenes from next week's Galaxy Quest.
Never give up, never surrender.
He will save us.
What they got
Never give up and never surrender.
were struggling TV actors.
You are our last hope.
Where's my limo?
Okie dokie.
And they're about to...
All right, Dave, I'm really excited to know what you think about... Oh my gosh, Dave, we have a knock on our guest door. Let me just open it up here. Oh, hi, Grant.
Hello.
What brings you here to this virtual space?
I was just passing by.
Oh, great. No other explanation needed in this case. Do you have a bit of time?
I've got exactly 32 minutes.
Great. So that's enough time to watch both the movie Galaxy Quest and talk about it. So we've nailed this. Grant, first off, I think you should maybe start off by maybe who you are and how people can find you on the internet.
Well, my name is Grant Tingley. I've friends with Kyle for a decade now, apparently. And you can find me on the Twitter and the Instagrams and TikTok. I've never uploaded, though, to TikTok.
You're just a watcher on TikTok.
Fejimans. Fejimanz or said, depending on what country you're in. Well, I found out my brother Russell he watches TikTok all the time.
Oh, weird.
Which blew my mind.
That's so weird to me. You, of course, make a living out of trying to be banned by as many people on Twitter. So that's going pretty well for you, I hear.
Well, I recently got unbanned from Angels baseball Twitter.
Did you really?
Yeah, it took.
Oh, that's exciting.
It took 5 years, but I got it done.
The biggest fan of the Angels baseball team that I know of, and was banned from their official Twitter account.
I searched my entire Twitter history, and I only found 2 tweets that I ever actually tagged Angels in, and they were just me being frustrated that the team's horrible.
That doesn't speak highly of them as an outfit. Yeah. But Dave, do you have any questions about baseball?
No, I'm not a baseball guy. Yeah. I'm from Toronto, and I was in the hospital when they won their first championship. So I think I'm just bitter that I didn't get to parade. Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
The last winning sports team. No, sorry. I was going to make a Toronto joke, but I guess the Raptors just won. So I guess they are a winning town once again.
No, that town doesn't win on anything. But let's keep moving.
Doesn't it win on the most amounts of Drake?
Fuck Drake. Fuck Drake.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Grant, I want to know just broadly, what is your relationship with Galaxy Quest? Like, first time you saw it, how many times have you seen it since?
Well, Galaxy Quest came out in '99, right?
Yeah.
So that was a kind of a weird transitional period for me, moving from California to Canada. So I kind of, like, that whole year for movies, I kind of missed out on a little bit of it here and there.
Right.
I mean, I saw Matrix, but that was all I could.
Who didn't see Matrix that year?
And I mean, I can barely remember going to that. But yeah, that whole year is kind of lost. So I ended up seeing it. Blake, my friend, told me about it, I'm pretty certain. And he saw it. But I mean, if you see the trailer for the movie, most people wouldn't want to go see that movie.
Yeah, it's we might jump into this after we watch the movie, but the marketing for this movie is not the greatest when you go back and see who they thought the audience was versus who the audience actually ended up being. Would you rate this, like, as far as even just comedies, in your personal top 10, or like where does it fall for you?
Well, it's infinitely rewatchable, and the fact that it is a thing that houses a Tim Allen, I can still get past that.
Sure.
But otherwise, I mean, it's really good. You have Tony Shalhoub doing something that, up until that point, I always thought he was an Italian airport mechanic or something. Oh, a taxi driver at an airport in a small town in.
For anyone who is confused, that's a Wings reference that Grant is making.
So, I mean, I for that, and that was the first experience I had with him doing something completely different. And then, So yeah, it's up there. I wouldn't put it in the top 20, but I mean, it's one of my movies that I'll watch if it's on TV for sure, every time.
I have to say, though, this movie, and I'm sure you agree with this, Dave, is like how they got this cast at that time. Because, I mean, you have Sigourney Weaver. Tim Allen was like the biggest name on the planet at that point with like Home Improvement and everything. But you have like, Tony Shalhoub. Oh gosh, what's his face? Who plays Guy in this movie?
Yeah, Sam Rockwell.
Sam Rockwell
breakout role. Yeah,
like there's like Rainn Wilson shows up for 2 seconds in this movie before The Office. I know, but still, it's like all these people who would go on to be like
Just Shoot
huge.
Me and,
yeah. Dave, what is your relationship with this movie?
It's one of my favorite movies. I have this on digital video disc. I love this movie, and as has been mentioned by Grant, I still think it's infinitely rewatchable. I can't remember the last time I watched it, but I'm excited to watch it right now.
Yes, right now we are going to be
winking it together, the three of us.
One thing that I can say about Galaxy Quest, it's one of the few movies that I own standard definition DVD and Blu-ray.
Oh, great.
Right.
Do you just want to like play them side by side sometimes just to see that fidelity that you're getting from your Blu-ray disc?
It's very important that I check every single copy of every single movie that I own with its comparable Laserdisc VHS beta platform.
You just dated yourself. You went Laserdisc. We still haven't broached a Laserdisc for all of the younger listeners.
The first time I ever experienced a Laserdisc, I was at a Christian camp up in the hills of California. And for some reason, we were in their little, what are those people called? The camp counselor little loft areas. And all of a sudden, I saw a Laserdisc player for the first time in my life, and my mind exploded. And I was so happy to see it.
For people who don't know it, it requires two hands. It requires
you have two hands to like put that on. I just think everything in disc format was better. You had your laser disc, your mini disc. The 90s were the perfect.
I had a mini disc player for some reason. My dad got it for me.
Why?
What do you mean why? That was the future until it wasn't. That was going to be
Mr. Betamax, how's it going over there?
It served me well one time ever, and it was because at my high school, the theater department had a mini disc player.
That's random.
So I could
end of story.
So I was able to put all my sound cues on a mini disc player and then take it with me and then play it at home and go over all that stuff. Though that's one instance in life that it actually worked out well for me ever.
When I was a camp counselor in Pittsfield, Massachusetts one summer, one of the other camp counselors had a mini disc player, and we would play Billy Joel. And that's how lame of a person I am.
Very specific, yeah. Wow.
I actually Dave, you're getting used to me saying, I've never seen this movie before. Galaxy Quest is one of the films I absolutely saw. It would definitely have been probably in the year 2000 is probably when I eventually got around to it, whenever it came out on VHS. It would have been that my parents would have rented this on so that we could watch it. And I remember loving it. I know that, of course, that this is a bit of a satire on Star Trek in general. And I probably would have been a little bit knowledgeable. Like, the reruns of the original series of Star Trek came on Saturdays, so I would watch those occasionally. I dipped in and out of Next Generation, so I was a little bit familiar with what was going on there. It had probably ended by 1999. I'm sure it would have ended by 1999. So I knew of Star Trek, but I probably wouldn't have understood the behind the scenes of Star Trek that this movie I know eventually goes into. But I still had enough of it be like, this is funny, this is really good. And I've probably seen it, I'm going to say, at least 5 or 6 times throughout my entire life. But probably like you, it's probably been over a decade since the last time I actually sat down and watched Galaxy Quest. So it'll be exciting to see what my feelings are at this point. So let's do this. Let's go and watch the movie. I'll thank some sponsors. And then when we return, we'll be talking about the movie Galaxy Quest.
Hey there, everyone. Just Kyle breaking in here one more time to tell you about some of the companies that make this show possible each and every week. I don't know about you, but I am getting geared up for this coming fall. The weather's going to be cooler. We're going to have nonstop election coverage. It's just a great time to be alive, he said non-sarcastically. We need to start by saying that Kyle and Dave vs. the Machine is a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown, community supported. The Alberta Podcast Network promotes and supports Alberta-made podcasts and connects their audiences with Alberta-based businesses and organizations. This week, we are sponsored by ATB, and specifically the Future of podcast. So I want to talk to you about ATB's new podcast, The Future Of. You join Todd Hirsch, ATB's Vice President and Chief Economist, as he connects with special guests who offer unique and useful perspectives about the future. You can explore how our economy and communities can not only brace for change, but embrace the opportunity it creates. From the future of women in business to the changing nature of work itself. The Future Of helps us understand what's coming and what we need to do today to get the tomorrow we want. Featuring 2 episodes each month plus bonus episodes, The Future Of includes interviews with top community and business leaders from Alberta and around the world. Subscribe to The Future Of in the Apple Store, Google Play, Spotify, and everywhere podcasts are found. And connect to ask your questions about the future by emailing thefutureof@atb.com. This week, we're also brought to you by the Alberta Podcast Network. So let's go and listen to one of the other great shows.
Hi, y'all. This is Ryan from the Eat More Barbecue podcast. I'm just a guy that loves slow smoked southern barbecue. I love eating it, I love cooking it, and I really love talking about it. I want to help grow the barbecue culture here in Alberta, and this podcast is a great way for me to share the stories of the people involved in the barbecue community, like restaurant operators and competitive barbecue cooks. Along the way, I also visit with other folks like farmers, distilleries, breweries, and anything of interest to barbecue people. A new episode comes out every Wednesday wherever you listen to podcasts. Keep on smoking, folks.
All right. Well, not to spoil it, but I think it definitely holds up. That's my stamp that I'm going to put here right now.
Just hit stop on the recorder, and
we're done. Thanks for coming over, Grant. We are finished. But yeah, no, this is no, it was great. I can't wait to talk about this with everyone. But before we do, let's go through some background information. So, Galaxy Quest was released on Christmas Day, December 25th of 1999. The other major releases that came out on that same day was Angela's Ashes, Magnolia, and The Talented Mr. Ripley all came out on the same day. So that's a pretty heavy-hitting day, which nowadays I don't feel like that would happen. Usually, like, one movie comes out on the 25th, and everyone else kind of flees that. So it's like, you're the Christmas movie, we'll kind of go off here.
Well, that's a good 4 movies, though, right there.
Yeah, I know. Like, that's a kind of a strong slate to open up on Christmas Day of 1999. You know, like the new millennium is coming up, and they were like, let's blow our wad right before the new millennium comes out. Because we don't know if anyone can see it. Like, Y2K is coming. We don't know.
Yeah. No better way to celebrate Christmas than Angela's Ashes.
So the feel-good movie of the winter.
The feel-good movie
family,
of the year.
The family event.
To tell you the truth, Magnolia isn't like the most happy movie by the end either. So
it's rated R as well. So,
yeah. Anyways,
that movie has fallen out of my brain prolifically. Magnolia, it's just gone.
Well, if and when we get to review it, I cannot wait to talk to somebody about that movie. Currently, it is rated 7.3 on IMDb. It's rated 70 on Metacritic. I think these people are rating it way too low.
It's low.
Based on Rotten Tomatoes, though, from 123 critics, it's at 89%. Wow. And from 224,233 users, it's at 79%. So definitely a fresh film on there. It is available on DVD or Blu-ray. You can rent it on iTunes. You can purchase it from iTunes too. You can also rent it via YouTube or Google Play Movies. You can also stream it in Canada on Amazon Prime or the service Tubi, if you are familiar with Tubi.
You're just making that up now.
I know. I could literally make up any two random vowels sounds, and I'd be like, "Oh, that's a streaming service." I love Queequeg. Its budget was $45 million. It opened to $7 million. Now, some people, I think, erroneously think this was a flop at the box office, which you'll see it kind of isn't overall. Domestically, it would make 71. Internationally, it would make 19. So that's a total of $90 million it would make. So that's twice the budget that it started out with. With inflation, that's $139.5 million that this movie made. But definitely became a cult classic afterwards, for sure. Its plot description from IMDb is, the alumni cast of a space opera television series have to play their roles as the real thing when an alien race needs their help. However, they also have to defend both Earth and the alien race from a reptilian warlord. So that is technically the plot of this movie. I can't say that that's not the plot of this movie, but certainly doesn't give you the tone that this movie is going for.
They should have just said, this is a satirical biopic of William Shatner's life.
Pretty much. Pretty much. It stars Tim Allen as Jason Nesmith, Sigourney Weaver as Gwen DeMarco, Alan Rickman as Sir Alexander Dane, and Enrico Colantoni as Mathesar. So let's start with Enrico Colantoni, who I'm sure I'm butchering his last name.
You are.
He was born on Valentine's Day, 1963. He began doing TV guest spots in the late 1980s, and he jumped into films in the late 90s, being in such things as The Wrong Guy, Stigmata, and AI Artificial Intelligence.
Now, I've told you this like 5 times, Kyle, in my life, but I saw Stigmata 3 times in movie theaters.
Why?
Patricia Arquette?
No, I don't know.
Yo, my palm started to bleed. I was like, I guess I'm going back to the movie theater. I know there was a time period at my university, they would play movies on this one channel. Like someone would put it into a DVD player and they would like broadcast to like the whole campus. I don't know how legal this actually was now that I'm saying this out loud. Anyway, Stigmata seemed to be like this movie that would constantly play. I'm like, why are we watching Stigmata again? Anyways, he'd go on to be in 2 TV series that could not be more different from one another. First, he was Elliot DeMauro in the sitcom Just Shoot Me, where he played a womanizing photographer in all 149 episodes. And then he'd be in the show Veronica Mars as Veronica Mars's dad, in a role that Kyle is still upset he was never nominated for an Emmy for. Since then, he'd consistently appear in bit parts on TV and film with such things as iZombie, Contagion, House of Versace, Westworld, and A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Up next is a film called Shark Week, with no plot description.
Can we just add that he was the father in Feel the Beat, a movie that I keep telling Kyle that he should watch on Netflix.
Is that an animated film?
No,
that's her going back into a dancer goes back to her hometown. And
the New York dancer
saves the rec center
fails,
or something.
Oh yeah,
saves the rec center.
I was gonna watch that. I didn't. I gotta watch that. I love those types of movies.
Yeah, it's good.
I'm a sucker for them.
Are they allowed to dance in their small town though? Is that against the law?
No, it's not Footloose. It's it's adorable though, because she's gotta bring hope to the children of this small town. You'll really get it, Kyle. It sounds like a place where
it's a very non-Dave sounding movie to me, but that's okay. Okay, Alan Rickman. Alan Rickman was born February 21st, 1946.
Oh, hey, and he's my birthday buddy.
Who, Alan Rickman?
Yeah, February 21st. Me, Alan Page, and Alan Rickman, February 21st.
Hey, that's a good group of people right there. So he had a career on the stage before jumping to film. He'd become a well-respected dramatic actor. However, for sure, one of his most famous roles is as Hans Gruber in Die Hard.
Greatest.
I think
movies.
Depending on what your age is like that is probably how you remember him originally. At least is like that is who it was.
The slow-mo fall. That's genius. The slow motion fall. Come on,
100%.
Didn't they like really drop him? Isn't that the story?
Well, instead of going 1, 2, 3, you're going to be dropped. They went 1, then dropped him.
Yeah. Okay.
Pure terror. Come on, Kyle.
Any story I've ever heard though of Alan Rickman is he would probably have got off of there and then some withering remark and made the other person want to kill themselves for the rest of their life because he's like that British.
He played himself in all his movies. Yeah.
So he'd follow up Hans Gruber by being in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, Sense and Sensibility, Dogma, and Love Actually. For a different generation of people, though, his role as Severus Snape in the Harry Potter films would make him famous again. His last film would be Alice Through the Looking Glass. He began showing signs of sickness in the last couple years of his life, even committing to doing a sequel to Galaxy Quest. But he would pass away due to pancreatic cancer at the age of 69 on January 14th, 2016.
Man, I hate that cancer. It's like my most hated cancer.
It's not a great way to go because from diagnosis to death, it's like a few months. Like it goes.
Unless you're Alex Trebek.
That's true.
He's kicking strong. Canadian blood in him.
Actually, I think I believe you meant to say, who is Alex Trebek?
Oh, come on. Hey-o.
So, Dave, I'm going to send you over the rest of this stuff to talk about, and you can take it from here.
Sure. Sigourney Weaver, born October 8th, 1949. Sigourney Weaver would make her film debut in 1977 in a bit part in Annie Hall. Only 2 years later, she would skyrocket to popularity by starring in Alien as Ripley. What a fucking awesome movie.
By the way, did you know that in the sequel, in Aliens, she was nominated for Best Actress?
Good. That movie's amazing.
Yeah. I agree, but it's weird that she was nominated for the sequel and not the original. Anyways.
Well, I mean, I think the first one's a horror movie. And
that's true.
77, yeah, come on. She would continue on by being in the next 3 Alien films and be perceived not just as a sex symbol for lonely teenage. Kyle, this copy, buddy.
What?
Perceived not just as a sex symbol for lonely teenagers, but also as a badass action hero. Other films she'd be in.
I'll point out that the machine did not specify whether it was lonely teenage boys or girls. I think it's just in general teenagers. Just so
Other films she'd be in are Ghostbusters, Gorillas in the Mist, for which she received an Oscar nomination, Working Girl, and The Ice Storm. She has become in recent years the elder stateswoman of sci-fi, showing up in bit parts in WALL-E, Paul, and The Cabin in the Woods. She's set to be in a bunch of sequels, but her most likely next movie that you'll see is Ghostbusters. They're doing another one? Oh, with Paul Rudd?
They filmed it here in Calgary.
I forgot the Ghostbusters Afterlife. And then the next 4 Avatar sequels. Did that say 4?
Yeah.
That's 4. They're filming them simultaneously right now. They're flying people into New Zealand as we speak to try and finish this next one up to be released in theaters in December. So
like 4 3-hour films by James Cameron?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah. He's probably developing new cameras right now as we speak so that he can film these.
Grant's reaction was perfect. That was a deep sigh.
I have learned to stop. Listen, I have learned to stop betting against Dave Cameron.
James Cameron.
Well,
James Cameron.
He didn't make it. Yeah, David Cameron didn't make it.
James Cameron. His last 2 movies have made over $2 billion, and he continually invents new things to make his films work. So I mean, sure, why not?
James Cameron,
$17 billion movies.
James Cameron's existence is exhausting. That he's on the same planet right now as me exhausts me.
Yeah, just seeing what he does. It's like, he's going to save the Titanic, dive down there, go film a movie, rescue Guillermo del Toro, whatever.
I mean, God bless him, but, whatever.
He also made Aliens, so...
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, keep going there, Dave.
Full circle.
The fact that he's not the first person to film in space is insane to me.
I know. It's actually quite amazing that he's not.
Well, that's what happens when you head fake Tom Cruise into doing it now or never, because Tom Cruise has got to do it now. Because I'm sure if James Avatar 5 might have taken place in space, because underwater is one of them, in the air is another. It's going to be all over the place. So maybe when he gets to 5, it'll be space time. But
Tim Allen, you can listen to our Toy Story 2 episode to hear more about Tim Allen. Nice cop out, Kyle. Written by David Howard and Robert Gordon. Story by David Howard. David Howard only quote-unquote wrote this movie and a 2018 film called Trek, the Movie. Robert Gordon has had large gaps in his writing career. After Galaxy Quest, he also wrote Men in Black 2 and the film A Series of Unfortunate Events. His last film was in 2019 called Wonder Park. Is that the
it's
animated
an animated film, yeah. So I just wanted to point out the reason why there is quotes around how David Howard wrote this movie. It's one of those classic Hollywood things. So David Howard wrote a movie, let's say it was called Galaxy Quest, although I think it was called something different, that had the basic shell of former actors of a TV show go on an adventure. The studio decided to go in a completely different direction and had Robert Gordon come in and rewrite the movie from scratch. But because it was originally optioned from David Howard, his name still appears on the movie, even though nothing that happens in this film was actually written by David Howard. It was all written by Robert Gordon.
I can't think of one element of it, really, aside from the very basest of bones that TV star people get wrapped up in a real life thing. But I mean, even the premise there, I believe the first script was the aliens come to Earth and the thing happens on Earth, which...
Yeah, it was, like I said, completely different. If you want to know more, not that I did, but you should watch the documentary about the Galaxy Quest.
How did you have time since we just watched the movie?
We just watched it right now, so I did not have time to watch the documentary. But it is on Amazon Prime too, so it gives a good overview of like how this all went down and et cetera, et cetera.
My family, we just watched Race to Witch Mountain with The Rock in it. And it sounds like the first draft of this movie parallels that movie more than Galaxy Quest. Yeah,
we have this piece of shit sitting around here. Why don't we make this movie?
It's weird too watching 2009 Rock. He's like a quarter the size he is now.
Yeah, no, it's true. He was only eating like 5 pounds of beef a day back then.
He was still the people's champ, though. I'm pretty sure.
I'll say I said it before. I'll say it again. If he just stopped working out for like 5 years and committed to a real decent movie, I think he would be Oscar nominated. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
What do you mean? Everything he's in is gold, man.
It is gold, but they're never gonna give that man a little Oscar,
an award
ever.
No,
he's an incredible actor.
Crush it.
Who will be the first wrestler to win an Oscar is my question.
Well, it's clearly going to be for Money Plane.
I have a co-writing credit on that.
Oh, you actually know about Money Plane?
It's going to be Edge in Money Plane.
Speaking of wrestling, we watched that kid wrestling movie on Netflix. That was quite good too, with The Mask. If you've watched that, that's a good movie. You would like that if you're a wrestling fan. I just can't remember what it's called.
I'm not, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. It's on Netflix. It's the kid finds the luchador mask, gives him superpowers. You know what?
I probably would like that, yeah.
You're getting very close to Jerry Seinfeld today. It's amazing. It's on Netflix.
Listen, I have a 6-year-old at home, and we watch only great movies.
Oh, I bet. All right, finish off your last thing here before this episode turns 3 hours long.
How long we've been taping for 30 minutes. This movie is directed by Dean Parisot. Parisot? I don't know if he's French.
I think it's Sot. I think it is the T. You hear the T.
It depends.
And he has got an interesting career.
Oh, yeah. It's weird.
Before Galaxy Quest, the only other film Dean Parisot has written was Home Fries. Before that, he had done a bunch of work in television. After this movie, he jumped back to TV to do such things as Curb Your Enthusiasm, The Tick, Monk, and Modern Family. Which Tick? Actually, by the sequence, it was...
Live action Tick. The first Tick.
The first, not the Amazon one. The Amazon actually was pretty good. I
like the Amazon one too, yeah.
He'd then get back into movies to direct Fun with Dick and Jane and Red 2. The next film you'll be able to see will be Bill and Ted Face the Music whenever that gets released.
Yeah, like what a weird, baffling career. And the weird thing about it is, I mean, according to the documentary, if I had seen that, not that I have, is that he's like super well liked. Like this guy is like a super well loved director. I don't know why he doesn't do more projects. So I don't know.
Well,
it's weird.
I mean, Red 2 was that's a big.
That's a movie.
Big time. It was a movie that happened. All right. Well, let's rip the Band-Aid off here. So, Grant, let's start with you. Overall thoughts of Galaxy Quest, now seeing it here many years later.
Well, this is the company line in Hollywood that it's the best Star Trek movie. I mean, you can't go that far in Hollywood without a nerd saying that this is the best Star Trek movie. So I stick by that.
Well, how about this? Why do you think people say that then? Obviously, it doesn't have any of the Star Trek actors. So why are people so fond of this movie?
Well, it's a two-pronged approach that it, like, even though they were in ridiculous situations like teleporting the animal inside out onto the ship, like those things wouldn't work on Star Trek. But then when you think about it, that should happen all the time on Star Trek. Like, that's just like, it's like the Orville is kind of starting to get their hands on these sorts of things, the day-to-day operations. But the second thing, the other prong of this whole thing, was acknowledging fan culture before anybody else really did it.
I really want to dig into that a little bit more, because I think it's such a fascinating look into fan culture in the late 90s and where it has grown to be in modern day. But Dave, why don't you tell me, what are your thoughts on Galaxy Quest in the year 2020?
Yeah, I'll echo everything Grant said. I would maybe phrase it's satire and a homage. I think it tells you everything. It makes fun of itself, but it also shows you why it was the best. It was the best show ever. It's weird, and yeah, the convention and fan thing is so important. Quick shout out to Justin Long. That was one of the greatest nerd performances of all time. Framed his career, I think.
Can I just tell you that he actually has one of my favorite line readings in this movie, which is when he asks him what his name is, and he's like, he looks up, Brandon? He does it like as a question, and I think it's such a brilliant way to phrase that line. It's so funny.
I for some reason just assumed you were going to say another great line read. I mean,
I knew it. Like,
I
that's
knew
the one
it, exactly. I'm just like, because every time I hear them, I get goosebumps, and I'm just like, oh, perfect. It's so neat. And you know what? They almost got rid of him from the movie.
I know, they almost cut him out completely, which I think is hilarious.
Oh, in the post?
The director fought for it, like, no, we have to keep his scenes in, like, or else it doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense. Yeah, and everybody's good. Everybody's amazing in this movie. There isn't a single weak performance.
I agree. I think it's a few different things from that. Number one, it seemed like the studio was like hell bent on making this a bad movie. Like, when you just look at all the decisions they made and that they had to fight for. I think everyone is cast perfectly here. I would even go so far as to say I think this is the best Tim Allen performance.
Oh yeah.
Of any movie that he's been in, even if you take into account the Toy Story movies. I think this is literally his best performance.
Well, I've only really, not counting Toy Story, I've only liked one of his movies, and that was Big Trouble.
Sure.
Santa Claus? Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Which, for some reason, that movie just gets to me. You
mean you're not a Wild Hogs fan, Grant? Come on.
My dad loved that movie, but no, I can't. I think my dad watched that Wild Hogs like 17 times because it was always on HBO.
Jesus.
Oh, wow.
But I think that probably is because of the cast. You have like Sigourney Weaver and Alan Rickman and Tony Shalhoub, all these like phenomenal like even Sam Rockwell, phenomenal actors. I think they just elevate all the material where they were given free reign to try different things and experiment a little bit. And I also think what is cool to talk about this movie as compared to the movie we talked about last week, which was Mystery Man, is why I don't think that movie necessarily works for me as much as what this one does, is that this one, its tone is very singular, which is like, and the director has actually talked about this. This is why I'm saying it, phrasing it this way, which is, this is a drama with comedy elements put into it. And those comedy elements actually just land so much harder, because it's like when Alan Rickman is fed up, he is an actor fed up. He's not hamming it up. He's not like goosing the joke at all. Tim Allen is playing like a self-obsessed braggart. He is William Shatner, yes, in this movie, but he's again not playing that up for laughs for the camera. He just is that character, and I think that makes the comedy land and the drama land so well in this movie. And the last thing I'll say is that I think it would be the easy approach to take a look at this and be like, do what a lot of satires do and be like, isn't it stupid for people to like this? And it never does. It's like the fans love this, and that's actually what gives these actors meaning, and also gives the people watching it meaning at the back. And we could talk about like the dark side of fan culture that this doesn't really get into, but I think at the basis, like if you are a fan of anything, that's what it does. It's like, this is the stupid little show that aired on television that in the grand scheme of things doesn't matter, but it matters to me. And that in itself makes this important. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong for liking something. And I think that that's a cool way to I don't know, process this movie.
To compare it to last week's episode, quote unquote, and even to the Toy Story 2 episode, one of the parts that makes that work is how they would actually produce the original series and then, compare it to what's actually happening in the ship. So there's this great part where you see what they're making fun of. But when they make it a reality, it becomes an action or a drama film, which is genius. I don't know if it's intended to be, or if in retrospect it got pieced together that way. I mean, that we'll never truly know. I haven't watched the documentary. I didn't have time because we just finished watching the movie. We just
watched the movie, yeah.
So, but people always reminisce that they intended for this to be a perfect movie. But it works so well. You have to take
that with a grain of salt all the time.
Well, the big rumor of Galaxy Quest has always been the fabled R-rated cuts. And out there's an R-rated cut somewhere.
Well, I mean, you can argue with the fact that there was at least 2 instances where you can see for sure that Sigourney Weaver does not say what she actually says on screen.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, she just used the F word, and they filled that in.
But there was just no way to get around it. So.
She's my favorite word. Yeah, fuck.
But it was, but when I have seen the documentary, and for kind of now, the more I saw about the documentary, it kind of like brought that back a little bit more, where maybe that R-rated cut was more of a, like a hope that we could have one day had, where it doesn't really exist. It's like, they're like, there's some more swearing, but really, this is what we wanted to make. This was what it was, which makes me feel better. I mean, I would have liked her to say, oh, fuck that, instead of going through the mashers, but still, the fact that we can see her say, oh, fuck that. And she's saying...
Is in itself kind of like a funny in-joke thing, too. But one day they will release the Snyder Cut of Galaxy Quest. So
you had to do that.
I am on board with all the cuts.
All the cuts, all the different
versions. If we get 19 Blade Runners, that's true. Come on.
I'll give you, Blade Runner's one thing. I love Blade Runner. And I don't know if I brought him in this podcast, but when I was going through my 24-hour sleep deprivation EEG from my medical problems, I watched Mad Max in the Chrome black and white.
Right. Yeah,
you got to watch that in black and white. It's on the Blu-ray. Whatever. It's fucking incredible. Yeah. But moving on. Yeah, I'll stop talking.
I'm all for all the cuts. All the cuts. But my favorite thing about the Blade, I just wanted to make it. I always like to make the episode as whatever podcast I'm on as long as possible.
Sure.
But when you start talking about Blade Runner, the one thing that always surprised the hell out of me was how some of them are just really, really bad cuts.
Yeah.
So I've seen like 5 or 6 of them, but like 2 of them are bad.
Yeah, but that's why there's so many cuts. Yeah, so we have to keep revisiting it.
It's fascinating.
Like, it could be good this way. Yeah.
Well, I mean, not even to derail it, but I hate, and I know that's a strong word for me, but I hate it when I see the reporting of like, first cut of the new Avengers film is 4.5 hours long. I'm like, because it's like the first cut. It's not going to be that long when it gets released. Like, stop reporting this.
That's probably a post Lord of the Rings thing, because I was a big extended edition guy, but it still disappointed me as a nerd of the books. But I think that's probably where that culture started coming from, because...
Give me my Tom Bombadil cut, right?
When you're dealing with those Russo brothers, though, they're not filming extra stuff, really.
Sorry, you just use quotations. Are they not real brothers? Is that what you're saying? Or is their last name not really Russo?
No, I'm lumping in the Rene Russo as well. So it's the loose collaboration of Russos. But yeah, like those are people that don't shoot a lot of extra stuff either. So I mean, like, deleted scenes for those types of movies is minimal at best. So people yelling 4-hour cut, it's like, well, probably not. You're just a little crazy.
So I did write some things down, although I will say about for the last 40 minutes, I forgot to write any notes because I was just like watching the movie then at that point. I think we were talking about how this really relates to Star Trek, and they definitely utilize some language from that series. Old friend is used a few times. So if you're knowledgeable Star Trek, that's used over and over again between Spock and Kirk. I found it hilarious just knowing about modern day conventions that the expensive autograph signing was $15. I'm like, oh, that's sweet that you think that that's expensive nowadays when you can spend $300 on a
$300
easily.
If you go to these things, you have to pay $300.
Depends on who it is. If you're talking to like Nathan Fillion, probably up to that point, like $200 at least.
Kyle,
Nathan Lane, $1,000. Notorious.
That's right. Nathan
notorious Lane. Stingy.
I mean. You joke, but if you went to Broadway Con, you're probably not wrong.
Have you paid that, Kyle?
No, of course not. I don't pay for autographs. I would never do that. I just go and look at them signing autographs. Like, oh, that's cool. That's that person. I'm not paying you that money.
Holy
I mean, if you're like a Yakov Smirnoff, you're going to probably charge $15 still. But if you're one of the big names, yeah, you can charge a lot. Which is why they go and do conventions nowadays, because they can make a ton of cash in like 2 hours of work.
Why are you bagging on Yakov, man? That's brutal. Yeah.
In Russia, autograph signs you, right?
That's correct. That is correct. I just want to, again, call out the fact that Tony Shalhoub does such great physical acting in this. Like, he's not given like many lines in this movie, but what he's doing,
he's giving
like,
faces
physically. He's doing faces. Like, you're working so overtime, but you're not a character. Like, you're still in character, and this makes everything work so good. So Tony Shalhoub, shout out to Tony Shalhoub.
The face that Sam Rockwell makes when Tony Shalhoub and the alien are having sex is golden statue worthy. He shouldn't have won for 3 billboards. He should have won for that face.
Even
right there.
Even the delayed scream when they're getting probed.
Oh my God!
And they finally
yes, it's so good.
Switch. That was amazing.
Yeah, there's so many great scenes in this movie that still work as a comedy. I think they're great. I think that there's certain things too that call back to like any like science fiction show and criticism that people always make. One of my favorite is like them opening the back door and they're like, "What are you doing? You don't know it's air. You don't know." Like, is this like without them actually testing the atmosphere, which is something that happened in one of the Aliens films, just by the by, where they just take off their helmets for no reason.
That was the latest one, wasn't it? The Naomi Rapace.
No, it was the second latest one that they took the helmets off.
That I think I yelled at you for like 2 hours about that movie one time.
Oh yeah, we fought it out over that movie. What a piece of crap. Anyways, just run sideways. Okay, so we have I want to call out Alan Rickman as well. Just talking about performances. I think that anyone can feel bad for like the insufferable. Like, I have to say this stupid line. Here's what I was not expecting while watching this movie, and this is going to be embarrassing, but I'm going to admit it anyway, is that I cried while watching this movie this time. I was hiding it as much as I could from the both of you while we were watching this, but I did. And I don't know why. Maybe it's just because of this stupid like reality we're living in here currently and everything that's happened over the last few months, but I'm not going to say it, like the phrase is stupid, and then that death scene where it's like, "By Grabthar's hammer, I will avenge you." It's like, oh my God. It's like, for some reason, it like literally teared me up, and I don't know why, but it's like just Alan Rickman being great.
That was the theater gravitas. How understated that was, and how intense. Fuck, man, that was a moment.
Yeah,
that was a moment.
By the way, I know I keep talking about the documentary, but my favorite
that you've never seen, of course.
That I've never seen. But my favorite anecdote, if I had seen the movie, was there's that scene where the Eric Colantino is being tortured, right? And then they bring over Tim Allen, and he's like, "We're actors," and like whatever. He's supposed to get emotional. Apparently, Steven Spielberg was on set that day and was like super impressed and was like helping out. Anyways, that happens, and he was like, Tim Allen had to announce the cast and crew, like, "Hey, I actually have to take a moment because I'm actually feeling really bad. I've gotten into it too much, and I'm going to go back to my trailer." And apparently Alan Rickman from behind him was like, "Oh no, everybody, he's come down with a case of acting." And I just love that story.
They should have left it in the cut.
I know.
Speaking before about James Cameron, how is Steven Spielberg appear on all of the seminal sci-fi? Somehow he's involved in everything.
He just kind of shows up, right?
He's just there. He's like a ghost. It's fascinating.
My question is for you is, because people think of this at least tangentially as a Star Trek film, do you think it would have been as good if they had actually used the original cast of Star Trek to actually be in this film?
No.
Why?
Well, they're too close to it. You know, the fact that you can distance Alan Rickman as the Leonard Nimoy character, and it's not, you can have that small little bit of puffy little distance between the two, made it so that it was Alan Rickman being sincere and not Leonard Nimoy being sincere.
I need to admit that I'm always being sincere.
It was
right. It's not that meta category that you're getting into. Yeah.
I also think, the original cast wasn't capable of performing the way that this cast would have.
Imagine trying to get Shatner to do that.
without having a hissy fit.
Because he wouldn't understand that he's in on the joke. He would think that he's making fun of somebody, and he's trying to find that somebody he's making fun of, like his SNL sketch. That all the people. It's just a TV show. Like he would be looking there to poke people, and Tim Allen is sadly just not aware of the fact that he could have been doing that. So he just did it sincerely, and like you said, it's probably his best acting he's ever done.
Sorry, I just saw you laughing, Dave, and it caught me off guard.
Well, we'll just bag on Tim Allen a little bit and then hit stop.
And then hit stop. But how about Sigourney Weaver, everyone? I will not bag on Tim Allen because I keep kind of coming back to this idea is that I think what's fascinating about this is that, yes, like the William Shatner is there, but there's a humanity that he brings to it that Kirk never really had. Like, I don't know how big either of you are with the Star Trek franchise. Like, I've seen all the movies. I've seen all of the original and all of the Next Generation. I have not actually seen any of the other stuff past that. But when people like have those debates about who do they like better, do they like Picard, do they like Kirk better? Kirk was definitely like the take charge and like, we'll wrestle with the alien. And Picard was always like the sentimental, like, let's think this through and let's like have this humanity discussion. And he was a diplomat. And I find that this, if anything, this is like a trajectory of like someone going from a Kirk to a Picard. And I just think that that's like a really interesting way to frame this movie. But I don't know if you agree with that or not.
Yeah.
I don't know about, intentionally going that way. But certainly I think there's a great moment of reflection when you're retired and looking back at your career or hubris or whatever you want to call it. So there's definitely a thing about redemption there for him, but I don't know. Picard's I was just thinking before when you're asking about the cast, I mean, the Next Generation had better acting, or at least more modern acting, but I don't know. Outside of Patrick Stewart, could Jonathan Frakes have pulled off this movie? I don't know, maybe. If he had the beard on, yes.
Beard, no yes. Beard off, no.
Well, I mean, they did do kind of a weird take on the Next Generation version of this when they all showed up on Family Guy and they all poked fun at themselves and told Will Wheaton to shut up.
Well, they also did like the original cast on Futurama, so that's like a well-worn self-referential thing to do.
Yeah, but I never watched Futurama. I only watched Family Guy.
I'm sorry.
Is good.
You always have to check up on how Stewie's doing. I remember. I guess the last thing is that, we often ask this of how, do you think that there is any cultural relevance to these movies that we're watching from 1999? Where do you stand on that, Grant?
Cultural relevance? I mean, if this movie would have come out just 5 years later, it would have been marketed properly. It would have done well, probably made $100 million in the States. Cultural relevance, I mean, sure, it is an idealized version of fan culture. But I mean, when you start broaching or going into those certain new areas that movies haven't gone before, you normally start with the rose-colored glasses, and then you slowly strip that away. Yeah. But I mean, like that whole year is weird for me. Like, I can only remember, honestly, ever going to one movie in a theater that year. And it was just...
Which was The Matrix?
Matrix, yeah.
Well, I mean, I think you're hitting on something here, because 1999 is such a different than 2019, right? Yeah. Which is the geeks have inherited the world. Like, everything is marketed towards like nerd culture nowadays, when it really wasn't in 1999. That was not how things were portrayed. You were still an outcast if you were conceived to be like a nerd or a geek. And I just don't see that being the case anymore. So it's kind of almost flipped on its head, which is where you see kind of that negativity and that darkness of fan culture and what that eventually brings up. So you have that little bit of, I don't know, like you said, rose-colored glasses. But Dave, I have a very specific thing I want to bring up. But what do you think about this cultural relevance idea?
I mean, my first thought is I want to know what this dark side of fan culture is you guys keep referencing. It sounds like serial killers, but
it always is serial killers. Always comes back to serial killers.
It has to be a serial killer, or maybe in modern Hollywood, much worse with.
All I'm saying is that you've seen that being enacted in a few different ways, where fan culture grew from something like, I love this thing, to you owe me this thing, where you need to give it to me the exact way they want. I mean, I just referenced the Snyder Cut. The only reason that happened is because they bullied Warner Brothers for the last 3 years to release the Snyder Cut of that. And they finally capitulated to actually allow doing it, even though it wasn't a thing. Like, they're literally putting more money into it so they can release this thing that never existed in the first place.
They capitulated and still did it poorly.
Right.
Like, they should have, if they were the smartest people in the entire world, they would have already been talking to Snyder for a year and had it lined up to be dropped the minute HBO Max was let free. Oh, by the way, tomorrow we get the Snyder Cut. You're welcome, world.
Isn't that the nature of capitulation, though? That
do it poorly.
It's never going to be good enough.
It has to be done. It ends up being done poorly because it's never with pure intent. Yeah. Okay. Well.
But then the other big one too is like now with the rise of social media and stuff and being able to like actually physically respond to specific people. Like, I mean, the biggest one I'm just thinking off the top of my head here is, oh gosh, what's her name? Kelly Marie Tran from the new Star Wars films, of basically being like, you were in Star Wars, you're the worst, asking her to be like raped and murdered and all that kind of stuff. And her finally having to be like, I can't go online anymore because I just can't engage with this stuff. Like, that's kind of the dark side of what fandom kind of eventually brings.
I wouldn't put that fan culture. I think that's just the dark side of humanity and social media. I mean, fuck social media in general. That's not just nerds. That happens I know.
Everywhere. I'm just saying that's what eventually happens with any fandom, is like it starts off good and then you see it kind of evolve. One of my favorite podcasts, The Adventure Zone, is going through that right now, where they think that the person running the new campaign is ruining the entire show. So, and they like to bag on him over and over and over again. So it happens everywhere, I know, but fandom can get to a point. It's like, you ruined my past, like you ruined my childhood, is like that classic example. It's like, no, they didn't ruin anything. Like, you still have that movie. So I get kind of upset by those people.
The ironic destruction of democratization. But anyways, cultural relevance, I think it works. Yeah, I was just gonna bring up, because ironically we forgot to mention Sigourney Weaver, but her character is this idea of how women are ignored in the TV and movie space.
Well, especially because like her entire character, right? She's just sit there to repeat what the computer, right?
And and her character is actually written with so much more around her, which is great too, because it didn't fall into the trap of just being one dimensional, but like, if I had watched this with my wife, Helen kept asking me why her boobs are out at the end of the movie. And I was like, well, that's the comedy of it. If you know where science fiction films, including the MCU, Kyle's vaulted MCU universe still does this, where every female character has to have something out. No matter how armored it is these days, you don't get to see them in full tactical gear. We'll watch The Old Guard, and we'll see if it's evolving or not. Yeah. But I mean, comic books in general, never mind science fiction.
Well, I like with Wonder Woman 1984, where she's in her Golden Eagle armor. Like, that one, she is like head to toe in metal. There's no cleavage. Like, it comes up to here on her, and it looks more tactical. But that's one example.
Well, I mean, Wonder Woman is an interesting example.
They got Patty Jenkins
even though
to fight for that shit.
Well, yeah, that's true. But I mean, I'm just saying, like, that Wonder Woman movie, I have really big problems with the last act of that movie. But up until that point, what I thought was so great is that it was the inversion, right? Where it's like the man is like the underwritten kind of floozy character, and it's the woman who's like the strong, well-rounded character. And people lost their minds because he's an underwritten character. It's like, you put up with every woman being underwritten for like the last how many years.
Speaking of Star Trek, right?
I guess where I fall on this is I do think there is a relevance to it. I think people will pick up on maybe not the very specific examples if you're not like well versed in like the backstage politics of the original cast of Star Trek. I think you still understand the character types. Like, he's the boorish man who thinks he's all important. This is the self-important actor who thinks he's better than what the material that he's given, et cetera, et cetera. Where I do find it is that I just know from a lot of creators today how much Galaxy Quest specifically has influenced their filmmaking. MCU is the biggest culprit of this, which is like, hey, we can make something that is serious and funny at the same time without sacrificing either. you can have criticism if they execute it properly or not, or well. But I see this as being kind of that prototype of what essentially every superhero film started to like grab a hold of and be like, hey, we can do both of these simultaneously instead of only doing one or the other.
What the MCU wanted to do, but then the DC wanted to fight tooth and nail against.
Right.
So they wanted to go the dark, brooding, crazy whereas the MCU wanted to be popcorn, candy, positivity. That's one thing I just, whenever I think about Galaxy Quest, is it's such a positive experience to behold.
Yeah,
you know,
there's no dourness, like there's no cynicism really in it a whole lot. I don't know. I think I love it because going back and like I can trick myself into being like, oh, the late 90s were so good, even though they probably weren't. But to me, this feels so nice.
We already know they weren't. We're doing this podcast, Kyle.
Yeah,
some of these movies have been fucking terrible.
We just watched fucking Runaway Bride. Come on.
You know, bringing up that, you guys, I'm suddenly reminded of how Star Wars is described to me. And even though that's not a comedy at all, this idea of a space opera that actually ends on an optimistic, feel-good note. You know, we have all of this violence and war, but in the end, they march down this aisleway. They're given medals, and everybody's like, there's something still valuable and hopeful about the world. There's redemption. And this movie has that great tone, whereas movies don't get to do that anymore. Everything somehow has to have this one little checkbox where you're like, you're still fucking doomed. You know, life sucks. Get on with it. Watch our next film. To be continued.
Yeah, I've been really noticing myself trending towards watching those more positive movies lately. And obviously it's a sign of the times that we're in. But that it's just so nice.
Whatever do you mean, Grant?
It's just nice to sit there for 90 minutes or whatever and watch something that is just so pure and innocent and positive. Like I just watched Eurovision for the 5th time.
I couldn't get into it, man.
I love it.
I think it's like
Stockholm syndrome.
Robitussin, where it's like you have to have that first hit and then it just makes you feel good after.
Swallow it first.
But it's like, I know it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but it's such a positive movie. You know, they're not going into Eurovision to make fun of it. They're like, this is a crazy spectacle, and we're going to appreciate the spectacle.
I don't know if I mentioned it before, but Feel the Beat is on Netflix, and it's this movie about a dancer.
Are you getting paid by Feel the Beat, Dave?
You know, it'd be nice, though, if we did get paid by Feel the Beat, because that is a Netflix production, and I'd like $100 million, frankly. We could do a lot with that money.
I mean, technically, if we just went to Netflix with a pitch, they'd probably say yes. Like, I don't think they say no to many projects.
Well,
there's a whole.
I'm just saying Netflix.
There's a whole Rick and Morty episode about that Netflix says yes to everything. Yeah. So there you go. Already done, Kyle.
You gave Ryan Murphy 3 different series. That man doesn't need any more series to work on.
We're done here.
So the machine is telling us that we need to wrap up here. I guess I just want to say, like, final thoughts. I really love this movie. Eminently rewatchable. I think there's a lot to it, and I think it's a lot deeper than I think people even remember it to be. But Grant, final thoughts on Galaxy Quest.
I hate to say the word inoffensive, but that's what it is. There's nothing political. There's anything weird about it. It's just simple meat and potatoes type entertainment for your soul.
It's the Midwest of films, is what Grant is trying to say. Dave, what do you think?
To that point, there's a scene where Tim Allen is not wearing any pants. He's bending over. The aliens are staring at presumably either his testicles or his ass. And it's actually funny, and you don't have to question the situation at all. It's hilarious.
Oh, that reminds me in the documentary when he was fighting the rock monster and he had his shirt off.
Yeah,
he gets back on the ship, and Tim Allen's like, "Do I just not have a shirt for the rest of the movie now?" And they couldn't figure out how to get him a shirt, so they just happened to have an extra holding a shirt to hand to him, so he could put it on during that scene. But it's like, oh my God.
I have to say, too, weirdly enough, when his shirt came up, I'm like, oh, wow, Tim Allen's kind of built here in 1999.
Well, I don't know. I have this feeling that they did the old James Bond situation where they pack you down with ice, tighten you up first.
Yeah.
Because I don't think...
Is that a thing?
Don't drink water for 5 hours. Yeah,
it is a thing,
they do, like the cut. The fighters do that, too.
The Roger Moore was a big person later on in his Bond years. They'd pat him down with ice whenever he'd take his shirt off. They would tighten him up. And when Sean Connery went back in 1980 for Never Say Never Again, he's like, "You're going to make me take my shirt off?" And they're just like, "We'll just dump you in ice like Roger."
Like Sean Connery, I think it worked. Roger, did it work? Was it effective?
I think maybe his first 3 films, maybe, but by the time he was like 54 in his last film, it's like, yikes. That's an old man who just got out of some ice.
But Roger was never ripped of any kind.
Built,
like
wasn't meant to.
Sean was in shape for most of his James Bond movies. I mean, he was on Mr. Universe, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah. And the Highlander.
Oh, God.
Dave, did you answer the question? I can't actually remember if I asked you the same question.
Wait, which question are we answering? I'm completely...
Final thoughts on Galaxy Quest.
Oh, yeah, final thoughts. Amazing. I'm glad it was everything and more than I remembered it.
Yeah, it sounds like somebody's going to get wrapped up here pretty soon when they come through the front door.
Yeah.
And I just feel like... I'm sad that I haven't watched it in the last 10 years and need to watch it more often. It's great.
I mean, now that I know it's on Amazon Prime, I can definitely dip into this way more often than I have in the last few years. So
it's one of those movies that, sadly, because like a movie that I've seen and I will only watch once, The Hunt, I think about that movie maybe twice a week. Honestly, like it impacted me so wholly. But Galaxy Quest, I'll not think about for 10 years, and then I'll watch it 3 times in a day.
Right.
Because it's not in that, it's not there at the tip of my brain. And if that documentary didn't come out last year, I probably wouldn't have thought about it until today. When we watched it again.
When you randomly stumbled across this door to walk through.
Yeah.
Says something about human nature, I think.
Yeah.
Let's get to our ratings here then. And I'm so sorry to say this to you, Grant. I say this to every guest. Your rating doesn't matter. But if you were to rate this movie out of 5, what would you give it?
4.8.
4. Okay, great.
Nice.
I love the decimal.
Yeah, that's good.
Dave,
decimal.
what are you giving this movie?
I'm just gonna go with a 5, especially because of the dregs we've been watching. It needs to be above most of the shit that's happened. I thought 99 was going to be a good year, Kyle.
I think we're backloading a lot of like the great films. Not that I know what's coming up, but if I was to be a guessing man, that seems like what's going to happen. That means that my rating, Dave. By the way, I should also just point out before I give my rating that you can follow us on letterboxd.com. So letterboxd.com/KDVSTM is where you can see the full list and all of the ratings that we've given. KDVSTM is also how you can follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. My rating is I'm close to that. I guess I wasn't ready to commit to that 5. I don't know if there was just some wiggling thing going on in the back of my mind. I'm giving it a 4.5 though. I'm giving it a pretty high rating, which means that this is going to average out to 4.75, which lands Galaxy Quest into our number 3 position on our list.
Wow.
Even after rounding down? Yeah.
Yes, that's right. So I'm going to say it's a pretty good lock. The Galaxy Quest will probably be in our top 10 by the end of this whole project here for ourselves.
What's above? Matrix and Office Space?
Yeah. Matrix and Office Space are 1 and 2.
Oh, yeah. A movie that didn't age too terribly well, in my humble estimation, would be Office Space. But
really? I think it ages great. So that is that. Let's get into some trivia here then, everyone. So Tim Allen admitted that he was quite starstruck when he met Sigourney Weaver. As he's a huge fan of Alien, Allen even got Weaver to sign some of his Alien memorabilia between takes. She ultimately did, writing, "Stolen by Tim Allen, love Sigourney Weaver," which apparently made him quite upset.
Oh, he actually got upset about that? At least he didn't have to pay $300. That's pretty funny. Yeah.
But that makes me love Sigourney Weaver more. In the audio commentary for Star Trek 2009, director J.J. Abrams says, "By the way, I think we've all gone on record as saying one of our favorite Trek films is Galaxy Quest. And this sequence, where Kirk and Sulu are falling toward Vulcan without a parachute, is clearly an homage to Tony Shalhoub's great save in that film." So some more cultural relevancy as J.J. Abrams is using Galaxy Quest in his future films.
I could just leave it as J.J. Abrams is using blank.
Dave, why don't you read some of this trivia?
Okay. The film proved quite popular with Star Trek fans. At the 2013 Star Trek convention in Las Vegas, it received enough support in a Star Trek film ranking that it was included with the 12 Star Trek films that had been released at the time on the voting ballot. The fans at the convention ranked it the 7th best Star Trek film. 7th, eh?
I want to know what the 6th ones I could see Wrath of Khan being people's favorite. I love Wrath of Khan. But like, what other Star Trek film would you be like, oh yeah, it's way better than what Galaxy Quest is?
I just can't even. What are the good ones?
I guess you gotta save those whales.
Oh God. All right, let's move on.
By the way, where are the sirens? Whose place is surrounded by sirens right now?
Mine. I live on McLeod.
It is yours?
So, yeah.
God.
I'll just speak so closely into the mic that you'll hear my lips touching the foam here. Despite frequent whining about his character, crewman number 6, being expendable and going to die, some good scenes there. Guy Fleegman is the only crew member not to be shot and killed by Ceres during the surprise assault. But I think that's
a fun little fact where he's the only person who doesn't die before they have to go back in time to.
What episode do you think this is? Episode 81. That was. He's just amazing.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here this week, Grant.
Thank you for having me.
Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you.
It's a lot of fun. I guess we should see what we are going to be reviewing next week. Of course, once again, if you want to follow us on any of those social media platforms, it's KDVSTM. You can also email us at kyleanddavevsthemachine at gmail.com. I tried to make the email longer, but could not. So let's see what we are watching next week. Whoa, well, we're out of comedies, quote-unquote comedies that we've been watching the last few weeks, Dave. Next week, we're watching The Hurricane.
Oh, nice.
The Hurricane. Denzel.
Yeah, Denzel. Watch him punch up some dudes.
Your face doesn't look too impressed there, Grant.
It's a movie.
Ooh.
It's a movie.
No, it's Denzel doing good Denzel stuff, so what more do you need?
Dave, before anything too tragic happens, you should probably get out of here. Unless you do want to take off your shirt, but I don't know if you're Tim Allen jacked yet.
Well,
or how much ice you've been laying in.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I see a big bucket of ice there. The real question I think we should be asking is, who's digitizing Grant to get out of this weird space that we're in? Good luck, Kyle.